classification has been modernized and modernized. It was just one dome, now it's 3 domes there. And NSA is cooperating there. And people in the neighborhood don't know anything, more or less, about the activity. I did an interview with a guy with name telling about his job, but it tells about the Cold War. But it, like as I said earlier, and that way you find out the importance of this kind of installation. Earlier we talked about Svalbard, which for me also has been very important. My first book was mostly about Svalbard. And what is Svalbard? Svalbard is an island north of Norway here. It was very interesting in the way of regulation and so on. It is Norwegian sovereignty, but there are international agreement back from 1920s telling about it, some special international regulations on that island. I don't go into that, but I want to talk about the use of this island for military purposes. And it is as the thing that has been developing only the recent 10 or 15 years, and that's, I think it's very important. And it will be developing in the future. This slide David Webb showed earlier. Over 100 satellites are taking down their information when they pass in the North Pole going around the globe down to this installation on ground. A lot of them are doing very useful things for the civil society. You couldn't get a proper prediction of weather in Stockholm without this kind of installation, for instance. We are totally dependent for them for quite a lot of internet civil purposes. But we don't talk much about the military use of these kind of satellites. And of course these ground stations are used for all kind of military purposes as well. Even though that this island, as part of this international agreement from Paris in 1922, said that it should never be used for warlike purposes. But what kind of military use is it? Here is a big customer. Another US intelligence organization, National Geospatial Intelligence Agency. It is an intelligence agency who are taking part of all kinds of intelligence related to geography. That's the area. And a lot of these satellites that are taking down their information at Svalbard are commercial, but what's the fact is that the best quality of pictures are sold solemnly to US intelligence. That's a fact.
Sorry, could you please stay on the other side?
Yes, no problem.
Because.
But I would like to stand a little bit front here.
Can you?
It's okay?
This microphone works.
Okay. Okay, you want to stay stable here?
Yeah.
I like to walk around.
So, thank you.
Okay. But that's what, you know, the point of Regina Hagen was also important here. We have these dual purposes, civil and military use, and it's difficult to find out what is the real use of it. What does it say that, what does it mean that it's dual use? Thank you. And maybe the most important question is, what is the military use? What do we talk about? Do we talk about the military use? No, we don't. And it's sometimes hard to find out really what is this military use. But I work quite a lot on that issue. As I say, a lot. There are, I think, at least 6 or 8 satellites that are using Svalbard, taking down the information. The best pictures goes to NGA.
Why? They pay more, or? Now
Then it is regulated, in fact, by laws. For instance, German satellites. There is a law saying that a satellite owned by the German government, the best, the most sensitive part of the best pictures are to be handled in special regulations way, and the end result of it is that it's sold to military purposes. It's a regulated part of the national laws. You find it in Germany, you find it in France, you find it in Italy, for instance. And the purposes of the military purposes is quite different. It is for communication, it is for Earth observation. Communication, here is one example of that. And then intelligent drones in Afghanistan and Pakistan has used this ground station at Svalbard like a relay. You use that name, Dave, Bruce, that's a good name. You communicate back and forth with this ground station. You get information from the drones in the air over Pakistan to Svalbard and to a station at Hawaii, back and forth in real time. Here's another example of use of this ground station and satellite system in wartime. It was in the Gulf War in 1990. There was a big problem related to desert storms. The whole operation was nearly stopped because there were problems with desert storm. But the US had experience from Afghanistan that this has to be handled in a way. And it showed up that you could develop Earth observation satellites they had for this kind of to operate in desert storms. And they developed this skillness in advance of this Gulf War, and then they handled this situation with very harsh desert storms that actually went on in the Gulf War. And I can tell you just this incident was also up in the Parliament in Norway when I published my first book. And then the Støre, who will be the next Prime Minister in Norway, said, this is only weather forecasting. We can't stop weather forecasting. That's a way of I don't know, but I think just an example of how politicians answer on this. Here is in fact, it's actually this satellite I talked about. It's called Terra Aqua. And what is interesting with Terra Aqua and other similar satellite, it was hacked by China from at Svalbard. Have you heard about it? No. Because that's then you see how things are in this modern world is functioning. It's the two most important domain of warfare in the world today is cyberspace and the real space. And they go together, no more and more. And this is an example of that China hacked US satellites via the ground station at Svalbard for 24 hours, and it stopped. And it shocked, of course, the US military. Svalbard, as I told you, north of Norway. And today there is a double fiber connection to the mainland and direct lines to all globally. And of course, for China to hack this satellite with ground station, they used the same fiber connection up north to the Svalbard. And one interesting question is, why hasn't the Russian objected so much about this ground station?
Because they steal.
Maybe, yes. It's not only maybe. I have good sources telling it is probably so.
What so?
They are stealing the same information. They use it the same day without cost. Like Norwegian and US have done at Fauske for 50 years. Why shouldn't they do it? It's much cheaper. It's, you know, this cable on the bottom of the ground, it's easy to hack with a submarine. And I can tell why I can tell it's easy. The US submarines has hacked communication cable on the Russian side many times. S-range is a quite similar station like Svalbard. They are competitors in the same market. In fact, S-range started first, Svalbard came along later on, a little bit later on, not much. And this development has been going on now for the last 15, 20 years. So I think that's interesting. And of course, this will be developing in the future with, for all the purposes. So far, Svalbard has not has the capacity to communicate with drones that are really attacking with firing. But just in last year, this capacity seems to be up and going. And if this station will be up and going on these kind of things, maybe. I guess, yeah. They're on the same market. And we have this Finnish station in Sudankyle that's also in the same market. I can give you just one example of a satellite system, dual satellite system using Sudankyle then also for military purposes. It's called Cosmos SkyMed with 4 satellites using Sudankyle in Finnish Lapland. So we have 3 ground stations in Nordic countries that are competing in the same market and they're doing more or less the same. And this is interesting because I spoke with a Finnish journalist. It hasn't been public at all. In Sweden there has been some public interest related to S-range, mainly thanks to this audience. But in Finland there has not been no public attention at all. Not immediate at all.
Are there communication between these 3?
No. They work on themselves, more or less on themselves. You know, they are competitors. Okay, I want to have your attention to another location which Webb mentioned earlier. It's here. It is really on the border to Russia. Now we are talking about Bård, which has been a specialty for me for many years, and I think it's interesting because there's quite a lot of information about this. It is a military installation, officially a military installation, different military installation. This is the newest one at Bård. It's called Globus 2. Have star, and it is a radar. It is the most sophisticated space tracking radar in the world. It can follow a tennis ball over Africa without problem. But as you see, there are other kind of installation here which are older. What is interesting, it's 40 kilometers from the border. And I have no problem to understand that Russians are very angry at this installation. Yeah. There has been quite a lot of public debate about this newest installation, Globus 2, have steer, or the biggest one I showed you, the white one. And the public debate was when it was transferred to Norway in 2000, and at that time we had this ABM treaty saying that Russia, Soviet and US were not allowed to have missile defense equipment outside their own territory. And of course this installation in Norway was a violation of that treaty. But then 2 years after, Bush administration abolished this treaty in 2002, and then this kind of problem for Norway abolished. But it was part of the platform of the more or less leftish government of Norway from 2005, saying that we should not take part in missile defense. So there was an issue, but Norwegian politicians says that it is not part of missile defense. End of discussion. But I did an interview with that guy in 2005. He was Assistant Secretary of Defense in the period of 1994-2001. His name is Philippe Coy, and he confirmed in a video interview that this radar is part of US missile defense. And I believe more in this guy than I believe in Norwegian politicians.
So where is he? He's British.
No, US, American citizen. And
He's in the manager of the NSA, or is he?
No, as I said, he was Assistant Secretary of Defense in the period of 1994-2001, and he was also part of Obama administration. So he is on the top level of military politics in US. But there was another interesting issue related to this radar that I tried to follow, and I think it is more interesting. And it is connected with space warfare. As I mentioned, we had in the Cold War, space warfare was an issue. But in the recent 10 years, space warfare has been more actual again. And it started with this incident in China in 2007. China showed they are able to do space warfare. And how did they show that? You know, they shot down one of their own old satellites from ground. And it shocked Washington and it shocked Moscow, but it didn't. There were no public attention to it. This happened outside of the west coast of US. Some months later, US showed they are able to do the same once more, and as an answer to China. Officially, it was just to take care of a satellite that could harm the environment. Totally a lie. It was, and why I'm saying it's totally a lie? Yes, because WikiLeaks documents show that the actual reason was they wanted to show China that they don't mess with us. But China responded and did it again. And what has happened in the recent year, China has done more tests on the possibility to do space warfare. And what is also interesting is that India now has the capacity to do space warfare in the way of shooting down other nations' satellites. Russia has this knowledge from the Cold War and are developing this capacity also. And I did an interview with one of the main specialists in this field in the world today. It's called Brian Whedon. He's traveling all the world nowadays. He earlier worked in inside, and he says that in the next major regional conflict, satellites will be attacked. It's not my word, his word. But what is the connection between space warfare and Norway and this radar up in the north? The connection is that US has only one sensor to follow hostile satellites in the area from Canary Island to the Pakistan under all kind of weather conditions and darkness. And this area is the area we have all these kind of communication satellites for all kind of purposes, from television to
10 minutes.
10 minutes, yes, okay. And of course also spy satellites for all the conflicts in the Middle East. So it's of crucial importance. And then we have Norway, which is contributing in a very important way for US to be able to do space warfare in this area. Even though that the Norwegian Parliament has said that Norway should be eager to make it more to work against warfare in space. That was passed in the Parliament in 2008. And as a person, as an author, I find this offending as a Norwegian author. Norwegian politicians are ignorant. They know about it, but they don't go public with opinions at all. Recent years, this new radar in Bård, it's not totally new anymore, but it has been modernized for $150 US. That's not small sum of money for US. Pentagon is also by stress for economy, but it is the top national priority for during the Obama administration. And what is actually going on now, what is now also got public, is that there will be a new radar in Wormdal. It will be this. Here is a little bit smaller, but from the here is one who is. I showed the picture, and there will be another one here. So what will be the purpose of the new radar? What is official that they are going to work together. This guy, who is one of the leading radar experts in the world at MIT, Massachusetts Institute of Technology, said last summer that this encirclement of Russia, this new radar is part of, will end in confrontation. It's not my word, his words. And you know, all of you are aware of the new tension between East and West, and you find it here in Sweden that you use more money on the military, and it is the same in Norway. And without public debate, we couple of months, Norway, together with US, order new anti-warfare submarines. There is no debate, there is no information to the public about that this is partly US financed. So it is in fact part of this bilateral cooperation between US and Norway, which has been going on for 50 years, which is not part of the NATO cooperation. That I find, that fact is, for me, most interesting. I can tell you the size of this aircraft is the same as the new Norwegian planes. I've written a couple of books, the documentary, but mostly I found there is silence in the public. I said public is, politicians are silent. There is not much public debate, or not that many experts are interested. But I managed to have a gathering in my hometown last autumn, which I found very stimulating.
Which town is that?
Vadsø. It's close by Vardø. It's close to the Russian border.
No, I was there.
Yeah. Yeah. You see maybe Agneta sitting here somewhere. Do you see it? You see there? Oh. Okay. But I'm pleased that Agneta and the other Swedes were present. But I will also stress that this was a cooperation with the University of Tromsø, and I think it was about 10 professors present. We had people, politicians from the parliament, and we have people from different countries present. And it is in fact the first time in Norway we had a meeting about military intelligence.
It was 10 from Russia.
Tell
From
the
Wormdal.
first. Yes, yes. So, yes, I've been here before in Stockholm twice. I very appreciate that you know that I have the possibility to come here. If you have a couple of questions, comments, please forward.
What about the resistance in Norway for NATO? Is there a movement called Yankee Go Home? I heard about that.
You know, we have this very special situation, I would say special situation, that just a couple of months ago, for first time since the Second World War, we have US soldiers on Norwegian soil. It's the first time that we have foreign soldiers on Norwegian soil. And we have a policy that has said that we should not be we should be firm as we should have a kind of capacity, military capacity in Norway, but also we should have a policy not offending Russia, which says that we have no planes close to the border. That was a Norwegian policy for many years, and so on and so on. And as part of this, no bases from foreign countries in Norway. Norwegian politicians says that these US soldiers at Værnes, close by Trondheim, it is not a US base. But this incident and others has raised discussion in Norway. But I doubt very much that this movement will lead to that we will not be a part of NATO anymore. That's my personal opinion.
Question.
Is there any more question?
Yeah.
In those
Yeah.
recent exercises where the US Marines came to Norway, did they in fact leave military equipment in Norway? They're positioning military equipment there?
There has been US military equipment on Norwegian soils for many years already. So it's not part of this new base close by Trondheim that there will be equipment, US equipment. I think I would say that so that this equipment have been accepted by the public in Norway in a way as part of our NATO membership, because in the Norwegian public, if there is a war with Russia, we want to have cooperation with US. That's the main idea.
Yeah. Well, I think we had just one more, but then it's lunch. Very quick.
I have been listening to these talkers, eminent, wise
The
people.
question.
The question is, are we seeing the picture really? Because everybody is talking about between two superpowers war. But there is another hypothesis that this is a global sort of slave camp that is playing us out to think that there is a war between two superpowers. And all of these groups that you talk about, everybody, are actually not two. It's one big group that is trying to enslave people, and then we have a bit different strategies.
We have to finish.
Okay, more comments?
Jag har, innan du slutar Bård, så börjar jag säga att I have a small problem with a different matter. It's a very important to
Speak
me.
up.
The problem is that I've lost one of my ear things.
A very big problem.
It's a very big problem. So if you find one, it's my... Sorry, Bård.
No question.
Jag frågar, har du böcker?
Ja, böcker, har jag böcker.
But I'm sorry I had to interrupt you because it's 12:30, and I thank you. I'm the teacher here, seated before you hear what I'm saying. We have a lunch from 12:30 and all the lecturers are invited to lunch. And you others might find your place. It's a lot of places around here you can find your lunch. And 13:45 we are here sharp and listen to Kerstin Tuomala because it wasn't time for her to give her lecture. So it's very important that we are here in time. And then I can see with my satisfaction that Stig Henriksson is here. And where is Ingela Mortensson? Are you here? Yes. They are. So, yes, you are there. But I can't see the shared one. Helle Sönvisson is supposed to be here, commenting and debating what we have heard. And one more thing I want to say. I've been listening to these kind of lectures since 2001. And the first time I was terribly weak and upset. So to those of you who have not been involved in these space issues, don't be so terrified because it's sort of you don't know what to do. I decided when I knew the full picture, and that's why I'm going on like this in 2001 when I met Bruce Gagnon and Dave Webb for the first time, to do our part. To do our part in the world, and it is the North. So we sort of concentrate, where are we? Otherwise you go crazy. And then they will be happy. Thank you very much.
Agneta Norberg.
I would like to start with the second part of this conference, and the first speaker is Kerstin Tuomala from the Peace Fighters in Finland. Varsågoda.
Yes, but I have to correct the name because I have done it wrong. But it is the right name is Peace Committee in English.
Okay.
And then I also represent the Women for Peace. They told me that this day, and I am proud of it. The US NATO war games in Finland.
Du får ta högtalaren till dig. Högtalaren till dig.
Vad sa du?
Högtalaren till henne.
Nej, vänta. Det är den här. Hon har en headset med...
Det hörs inte.
Ja, vänta en sekund. Nu ska vi se om det är...
Ja, hon har en sån där.
Ja, hon har en sån.
Hallå.
Hörs det bättre?
Ja.
Säg organisationens namn igen.
The Peace Committee of Finland. And the Women for Peace. I was told to add that, and I think that it is okay. The US NATO war games in Finland is my subject. And I start with the history, because this year is a year of many anniversaries. We heard that the organization, the Space for Peace is 25. So someone is 80, and we have many anniversaries, besides in Sweden, also in Finland. In December it will be 100 years since Finland declared independence from Russia, and then it's under recognition of it. A little more than 100 years earlier, Russia had given Finland autonomy, which have made it possible to develop a nation as a nation. This happened in connection with that Sweden lost Finland to Russia in the war 88 to 89. Sweden never gave Finland autonomy. been only were a part of Sweden. The first 30 years of independence, Finland went through 4 wars. In 1918 there was the Civil War, 1939 to 40 the Winter War, and the following war 41 to 44 against Russia, and the war in Lapland 44 to 45 against the former ally, Hitler's army, which refused to deliberately leave after the ceasefire with Russia in September 44. The Germans destroyed Lapland in the war. The inhabitants had to flee with families and cattle to Sweden. Houses were burned and the ground was mined. That was the former ally. But we have also another anniversary. The 10th of this month, it is 70 years since the peace was signed in Paris, and we have lived in peace since. This peace included restrictions in our defense and armament. Finland has a 1,300 kilometer long frontier with Russia. You can see it on the map. Our post-war president Paasikivi realized this as a fact, and together with the restrictions of the peace treaty, it led to a treaty of friendship, cooperation and aid with the Soviet Union. Among others, we agreed not to attack or threat, or you say threat? Threat. Nor to let third parties through our territory attack or threat the Soviet Union. Due to these treaties and to the wisdom of our presidents Paasikivi and Kekkonen, we developed cooperation with Soviet Union, which benefited both countries until the frontiers were opened. That period lasted more than 40 years, with increasing well-being and also enriching cultural interaction. We learned to trust cooperation and diplomacy rather than military force. In questions concerning peace and war, we always are in favor for peace. In international conflicts, we strive to take the role of a physician rather than of a judge, President Kekkonen announced. After the collapse of the Soviet Union, the peace movement turned weaker. Our politicians deviated by small steps from the former peaceful policy. Our UN delegates accepted George Bush Sr.'s war against Iraq, 91. In connection with the purchase of Hornet fighters, 92, Finland started military cooperation with USA, and this was revealed now when we had a mutual war exercises with USA. The army said that, oh, it started 92, but then it was only a purchase. By and by, business. By and by, the law for UN soldiers was changed so that they could participate in peace forcing operations, which means using violence in other purpose than extreme self-defense, or it you can also call it to fight in war. Finland also has joined partnership for peace and by participated in strict NATO wars exercises as well as in NATO operations in other countries, for example in Afghanistan. Finland participated in surveillance of the airspace of Iceland in February 2014. In September 2014, the commander of the Finnish army signed a Homeland Treaty between the Finnish government and NATO. It has not been discussed nor voted about in the parliament. After the US Marine soldiers have exercised winter war in Lapland each January, the Arctic Challenge exercise exercise, which was the biggest NATO fighter exercise in 2015, flew also over Finland, and NATO fighters used Finnish airfields. This is where the Kiruna people are charged about, because they protested in a way you are not supposed to do. 2016, USA invited itself to exercise war on ground near Tampere, and in the air, starting from a field near Kuopio and flying over the whole of Finland. Kuopio is in the east. There's some there about, and so it's rather near the border also. On our south coast, the NATO Baltops exercise train landing. 2016, our government signed bilateral defense treaties with Great Britain and USA, and that is a way to, when we are not supposed to join NATO, so they do this. Ömsesidig, vad hur säger man det? Mutual treaty. This year Finland will be host for the Arctic Challenge exercise. Our army will attend 84 international educational programs and war exercises, both abroad and at home. Last year it was about the same. 2015, the government started to support Stratcom, which claimed it stands for true information in contrast to disinformation. The risk is the development of voluntary totalitarianism accompanied by censorship, already noticeable in the media. Finland has agreed to construct a center for detecting hybrid threats. As host, Finland will contribute to the main costs. That will be in Helsinki, this center. And it is not what ESA is, it has to do with NATO. I am worried about that Finland's politicians have resigned our independency and permit foreign powers to threat Russia through our territory. As motive is claimed that Russia is aggressive and cannot be estimated, with reference to Crimea, Ukraine and now Aleppo. The more our politicians rely on force, the less they use diplomacy and peaceful cooperation for our security. Finland has never gained anything in fights. Everything is won at the negotiation tables. If the peace movement doesn't come together to stand up against the military threat, we maybe are lost. But let us not forget that even though more than 50% of the Finns believe that there will be war with Russia, more than 60% say no to NATO.
Kerstin, can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Has told us here in Sweden that there was an agreement that both the Finns and the Swedes took 1984 against bringing nuclear equipment into the country. But the Finns were much more clever than the Swedes, because the Finns put an agreement there that no nuclear weapons were allowed to be brought in the country. Are people aware of this? Do you make propaganda around it? Because we are trying now to get such an agreement here also. Maj-Britt thinks it would be good and it would be easy for us to get a paragraph that would be like the Finnish agreement. And then it would be impossible for NATO to come into the country, because they never say if they have nuclear weapons or not.
It's the same with us in our country. have not heard that we have this. But I don't know if someone else, does Lea or someone else know, do we have such an agreement that we don't take nuclear weapons? Because
It's law.
Lea, yes.
Yeah, we have an agreement, but that's something that isn't accepted because if you think about last year's exercises that USA had in Finland, so you didn't know if the airplanes or the ships they had, if they had nuclear weapons. But I mean, there is the agreement that who is the one who is going to look for it and to see that it's.
Who is checking?
The grassroots maybe.
Did you raise the question though? Were people aware of this?
Last summer, no. Not in public.
Work to do.
Thank you very much.
Francisco.
No?
Left.
Okay, sorry, I have a lot of technical issues here. Sorry. My name is Francisco Contreras, and I'm going to lead the panel, and the panel is going to be in Swedish. So